You're listening to WOSD. I'm your host, Miriam Stein from the Marketing and Communications Unit, and thank you for joining us for tips on navigating OSD's contract user guides. In this episode, I'm delighted to welcome Sorraia Tavares, OSD Senior Strategic Sourcing Manager, who oversees contract development activities in our Strategic Sourcing Unit. We're here to delve into the wealth of information that buyers may find in our contract user guides. Welcome, Sorraia. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Miriam.
To get us started, what is the overarching purpose of our contract user guides?
Just to set the stage, sourcing teams start the procurement process more than a year in advance of a contract expiration or the launch of a new contract. They do a considerable amount of research to find out what buyers need and what's available in the marketplace. Once a contract is launched, the contract user guide explains the products and services that are offered, the terms that were negotiated with awarded vendors, and how to make purchases, along with other useful information.
It sounds like the contract user guide is a good place for buyers to get started.
For sure.
You mentioned the awarded vendors. I'd imagine this is an area of interest for buyers.
Yes, and we post the full awarded vendor list in the back of guide, including business name, how to reach the vendor, the categories they were awarded, prompt payment discounts, and supply diversity information.
Let's talk about that. There's been an increasing focus by organizations on diversifying their supply chains. How does our contract process respond to that, and what information do user guides provide?
OSD always looks to attract small and diverse businesses to our contracts. And we want to do business with vendors that prioritize investment in supplier diversity. The awarded vendors section in the contract user guide identifies vendors that participate in small business purchasing program and businesses that are certified by the Supplier Diversity Office. Not too long ago, we added additional supplier diversity information, and most statewide contract vendors are required to spend a certain percentage of their contract award with diverse businesses. And we publish those percentages for buyer inspection.
Good to know. So moving on, in your experience, Sorraia, what questions do buyers commonly ask about using our contracts?
Yeah, there are two questions that immediately come to mind. The first is, where should I look to find contract pricing?
Is that in the contract user guide?
That is the first place to go. Every contract user guide explains the pricing structure for products. These could be price sheets and discount off of manufacturer's suggested retail price or list price. For services, we publish vendors' markup percentages over prevailing wages or hourly wages. Generally, pricing is published in combis on the master contract record or on a vendor master blanket purchase order.
Do buyers need to log into combis to access those?
No, I'm glad you brought that up. Buyers can link to these combis record right from the contract user guide. They don't need to log in.
So what should buyers do if they don't find what they're looking for on the price sheets?
The first step is really reading the contract user guide to understand the scope of the contract. If the product appears to be within the scope of a contract, buyers should reach out to the OSD contract manager We'll work to add items when they are within the scope of the RFR and available from awarded vendors.
Very helpful to know. You also mentioned the RFR. Is this a document that buyers may reference?
The RFR provides even greater detail about the specifications that we've built into the contract. So, if you can't find the details of what you're looking for in the contract user guide, the RFR is another great resource. It's posted in Combise, and again, if you don't need to log into Combise to access it.
Earlier, you mentioned 2 questions that buyers ask about our contracts. What's the second one?
Yes. Buyers also ask about quote requirements. These are different for each contract. They can even be different based on contract category. Sometimes quotes are required, sometimes suggested, sometimes you need them over a certain dollar amount. Again, the contract user guide is your best resource.
So what other details can buyers find in our guides?
Each contract user guide is different, but some examples include negotiated benefits, emergency services, environmental specifications, return policies, and expectations buyers should have when working with our vendors.
Sorraia, one more question. How often are contract user guides updated?
We update the contract user guides whenever contract changes occur. I always advise buyers to download the latest copy of the guide, either from Combise or from our mass.gov website.
Any final thoughts to share with our audience about using our contracts?
Again, read a contract user guide and make sure to inform vendors that you are soliciting quotes or making a purchase from a Massachusetts statewide contract. Always mention the alphanumeric contract number, which is on the first page of the contract user guide.
So there you have it. So many reasons to reference our contract user guides. Thank you, Sorraia, for talking with us today. This has been very helpful. This concludes today's Buyer Tips episode about navigating the Contract User Guide. The Pod Squad looks forward to engaging you through our WOSD podcast channel. We are counting on your participation to help us create podcasts of interest. Send your feedback or ideas for future podcasts to OSD Outreach at mass.gov. Thank you for joining us.